greatest whole of Armada treasure ever found off Antrim's treacherous coast. The story of the Great Girona gold hunt in half an hour here on BBC One in Northern Ireland. That's after this week's Spotlight.
Today, Northern Ireland's housing market has almost ground to a halt. Fewer houses are selling here than at any other time in the past 25 years. Estate agents are dropping the asking prices on thousands of properties, but as the credit crunch bites, it seems fewer people can afford to buy them.
Property has risen very, very steeply, and now suddenly that market has come to a very abrupt and violent end.
Just 18 months ago, Northern Ireland was experiencing an extraordinary property boom. The biggest rises were in areas that once had the most affordable houses.
House prices were literally going up by the week, and houses were selling within 2 weeks. Within the length of time it took to get the legal work done, there were people starting to complain that in fact, the house had gone up in value again.
We meet those who gambled on property at the height of the boom. The man struggling to secure a mortgage on a home that may have dropped in value before he's even moved in.
So you're basically haggling to get a mortgage on an apartment that may already have devalued?
Yeah, that's the whole issue, which is a complete nightmare.
The first-time buyers who fought to get on the property ladder, only to find themselves paying a mortgage that's now greater than the current value of their home.
It is quite an unnerving position to be in, because you're meeting the mortgage payments every month and you're not even sure if your house is worth it.
The woman on benefits who gambled everything on the equity in her home.
I'd spent a lot of money on the house and I wanted to be here forever, but that's just not the case.
And one developer who predicted that prices would drop and believes those who took out 90 and 100% mortgages have reason to be nervous.
Anyone who's purchased property recently, and when I say recently I'm talking 6 to 12 months, I would estimate that at 85 to 90% of people would be in negative equity today.
5 years ago, Craigavon was regarded as one of the most affordable areas for housing in Northern Ireland. An average 3-bedroom semi-detached house here cost less than £80,000. But as the housing boom took off, the city became attractive to young couples like Johnny and Rebecca Newell, who had been priced out of the market in other towns.
We wanted to live in Armagh or perhaps Lisburn, just with myself studying in that at Queen's in Belfast. We wanted to, be closer to that region, but it wasn't feasible because we couldn't have afforded a house.
But as more first-time buyers and investors poured into Craigavon, the young engineer and his student wife found themselves competing for properties in an area that would soon have the fastest rising property prices in the UK.
There was quite a sense of panic on our behalf, because we were thinking we're missing the releases and they're going up maybe £5,000 a week at this stage.
As much as that a week?
Almost much,
yes.
Yeah.
So if you can imagine, when we started looking, they were in around the region of maybe 95, 100,000 for a house, quite similar to what we have. And by the time we got to the end of the bidding war, we actually ended up paying 141,000. So that was a matter of bidding at £46,000 more than what we
that was a stretch
first intended.
Now, was that in the space of weeks?
Yeah, but about a month, but over a month, probably
Just over a month.
just over a month. It would have been a space for that. So.
At £141,000, the house Johnny and Rebecca bought was worth 5 times their joint income. They financed the purchase with a 95% interest-only mortgage from the bank. 50 miles away in South Belfast, 28-year-old quantity surveyor Brian Maguire and his girlfriend had been outbid on 4 properties. Then they struck lucky on one of these apartments in South Belfast.
It was back in February 2007. At the time we were being bid out of several apartments around the place. We got the opportunity to buy an apartment in Redwoods in Dunmurry. with some money I had saved, my parents' help and my sister's help, I was able to get up together the 10% deposit to put down on it.
Brian put all of his savings into a £22,000 deposit to secure this two-bedroom apartment when it was still over a year away from completion.
So your apartment is actually right up on top? It's a roof space one?
It's in the roof space, yeah.
And you paid 220?
222 they were looking for it at the time.
But just months later, Brian's circumstances changed. He and his girlfriend split up and she pulled out of the sale. In order to save his deposit and to hold on to the apartment, he would have to persuade someone to give him a £200,000 mortgage on his own. Desperate to save money, Brian returned to live with his parents rent-free last summer. Around the same time, estate agent Beth Robinson was showing up to 40 clients around properties every day. As demand grew, buyers competed for fewer houses. By last June, the average price had risen to £250,000. Beth Robinson took us to see one of the houses that was at the centre of a fierce bidding war last year. Whoever was selling this house must have thought they'd hit the jackpot.
And this house is Spartan. There's damp, there's dry rot, you've got damp. I mean, this really is a Spartan house. This house last year in this state made £250,000. How much did you value it at? How much did it go on the market at?
Somewhere around about 225, 235, but everything that came on the market, there was a bidding war, and it was the bidding war that pushed the prices and fueled the very high prices that were achieved.
But were estate agents guilty of deliberately upping the ante?
At the height of the boom, and it was a frenzy at that stage, who do you think was driving the market?
It was investors and speculators combined with people wanting to make a house move.
But estate agents were driving the market as well. I mean, you were putting values on houses like this.
We were finding it very difficult to actually put a final value on anything. We would have had an asking price, which probably would have been somewhere around about 225, 235.
So how many years did you live here, Maureen?
10.
10 years?
10 years, yeah.
In 2006, Maureen Dooley applied for a home loan, even though she was unemployed and on benefits. Credit was easily available, and Northern Ireland's limited housing supply, along with a sustained period of peace, had ensured that prices here were rising more steeply than anywhere else in the UK. Maureen may have been deep in debt, but what she did have was equity, and lots of it. 7 years ago, she bought her home in West Belfast's Lenadoon estate from the housing executive for £33,000. By 2006, it had rocketed in value to £220,000.
How many bedrooms did you have?
3 bedrooms.
At the time, Maureen was in remission from cervical cancer and says she needed the loan to carry out renovations.
This would have been the room where most of the work was done.
So these renovations, they weren't just cosmetic. A lot of them were related to your health needs.
Yeah, because when I had the cancer, my bladder was damaged very badly, so it was because I have to do self-catheterisation. Right. So that's why this work had to be done to the bathroom, because you are prone to infections and kidney infections.
In 2006, Maureen had mounting debts and several county court judgments against her. She was living on income support, disability allowance and child tax credit. But that didn't stop an independent broker recommending her for a £36,000 loan against the rising equity in her home. Were you surprised that someone actually wanted to give you a loan?
A representative called to the home and asked me for proof of my income, and I showed them like a bank statement and what payments I had coming in, but they said that they could top up the money that I have coming in by saying that I worked self-certified for myself and that I was getting extra money off my son per week, which my son didn't live at home. So they had that all wrote down and just asked me to sign it.
Maureen borrowed from one of the loan companies who moved into the Northern Ireland market as house prices began to rise. These subprime companies targeted those who couldn't access high street credit but now had tens, even hundreds of thousands of pounds of equity in their homes.
They would have done leaflet drops in estates in areas where they knew that home ownership was a new thing, where maybe people previously had owned their home, maybe they'd bought from the housing executive.